Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Talking Tongue, the weekly quarantine show where I get to talk to my friends near and far to talk about, oh my God, wait a second. I'm not talking to just a friend. I'm talking to my life friend, my life partner, Laura Gordon, everyone.
Thank you for acknowledging that I'm not just a friend. It's been 6 years in the making, and it's great to finally have that validation.
Almost 6 years. It's been almost 6 years.
Well, for some of us, it's been longer than 6 years, but whatever.
Wow. Okay. Everyone, we are actually recording this on the road. This is a little bit different. I'm actually
not on an actual road, though. We're seated at home, at someone else's home. But we're not driving.
My parents' home. We're at my parents' home. And we are in Ottawa for the first time in like 2 years. We're sitting on a bed recording using a single microphone. And
can you tell I'm over here? Now the microphone's in front of me.
It's really hard because usually I'm passing the microphone back and forth, and I am not used to ever doing that to anybody. This feels like a really formal talking tongue. And I'm glad I'm sharing that with you, Laura.
Yeah, glad to be here.
And we have, well, we shouldn't say the name because let's just say our doggo, Cappy Meats, is...
that was enough. That was enough. He's paying attention now.
He's quietly sleeping next to us right now. So we can't get too excited on this episode today, but it'll happen anyways, I'm sure.
Good thing there's not a lot to get excited about, am I right?
Wow. Okay, well, let's get right into it. Today's episode's going to kind of cut to the chase. And actually, you know what? That's not fair to you, Laura. Laura, how are you doing these days?
I got a belly full of curried potatoes, so I feel good.
And how does it feel to be back in Ottawa? I know you're not from here, but this is where I'm from. But it's been a while. Our old stomping grounds. You used to come drive 6 hours to see me every couple months.
Yeah, that's correct.
And how does it feel to be back? And you have family here too.
Yes, it feels good. Although, here's the thing, everyone. People rave about the tap water in Ottawa, and I just don't get it. I had to get that off my chest.
Hang on. I pulled the microphone away from Laura as she was saying that, but she said she loves the tap water in Ottawa, and she had to get that off her chest, right?
That's incorrect. I said I don't get the hype around the tap water, but you do you, Tongue. You drink that water. Stay hydrated.
Okay, so here's the thing, is the tap water in Ottawa, for those of you who don't know, is incredible, first of all, because you don't need that damn filter. We have to use a Brita filter at home and all this other stuff. It's too much work.
Sorry. No, we don't have to. I just choose to because I like the taste of filtered water better.
All right, well, this argument can last the entire episode. So let's move on to something. Oh, well, Laura, what else? What else is going on? You're back in your final semester of school. How does that feel?
My head hurts. A lot of reading. I picked the wrong course to finish off on, I'll tell you that much. But we're in the home stretch now, people. Eighth course, and then I'm done, and then I'll have free time again to do projects.
Just tell Laura not to pick up another master's because I can't mentally handle her doing that.
I do what I want.
That's Laura's answer to everything anytime she disagrees. I do what I want. And you know what? I'm going to do what I want here. And that is talk about the news of the week. And we're just going to go quickly through some news stories because I really do want to get to our movie of the week here. And my first news story for you, Laura, is let's talk about the Mario movie for a second and the casting there.
I thought it was a joke. What is it? Anya Taylor-Joy, is that right? I just feel surprised that they got her for a movie starring Chris Pratt. I don't know. It just feels all over the place. I am excited about Jack Black, and I'm excited about other people seem to be excited about. Is it Charlie Day? Is that okay? And that's mostly it.
And, you know, this news story is a little bit old at this time, but let's see. It's Chris Pratt as Mario. It's Anya Taylor-Joy as Peach. Charlie Day as Luigi. Jack Black as Bowser. Keegan-Michael Key as Toad.
Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong.
Yeah, this casting's all over the place. And we're not breaking new ground here. I'm a huge Mario fan. And it's crazy that Miyamoto, you know, creator of Mario, comes out and is like, hey, look, I got the cast for you. And it's like the most basic ass. I mean, it's A-list actors all around, but like, is this the people we want? Like,
I don't. It sort of feels like they spun a wheel and just used the people whose names they landed on.
Like, the only thing that's missing is like Ryan Reynolds as like, I don't know, Wario.
Or like as Deadpool as Wario.
Oh, God. And they do got Charles Martinet, who is the current voice of Mario, has been for years and years and years. He's going to be not voicing Mario, but a bunch of different characters. And I'm like, you got him. He's the guy. He's so good. Just use him.
Let me tell you a little something, Hollywood. There are actors and there are voice actors. And, you know, some actors can be good voice actors and some voice actors can be good actors, but maybe just give the voice actors a little more credit and let them voice act instead of bringing in celebrities all the time.
Agreed. We agree on something for once. Oh, well, we agree on a lot of things, except the movie of the week. No, we're not going there yet. I want to talk about James Bond for a second because I feel like, well, I'm actually not sure, but the new James Bond movie is coming up, and the news story was that like it's not as important. It's like who was it? Daniel Craig punched Dave Bautista in the nose and broke it, or something like that in a shot. It doesn't matter. It was like a whole, oh, I can't believe he broke his nose, and they kept doing the scene kind of thing. But I'm just more curious. Are you excited about James Bond? And it's Daniel Craig's last film. I'm curious. Like, do you like him as 007, or do you even care about this franchise?
And you're asking me, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so my main thought is I'm pretty sure I've only seen two James Bond movies. I saw was Casino Royale, his Daniel Craig's first one. I saw that one, and then I saw Skyfall, which I thought was quite good. But I've never watched any of the other Bonds, so I don't really have any sense of like good Bond, bad Bond, Bond for the ages and all that stuff. But what I would like to talk about, Tuong, is the appearance of a particular color in menswear on the red carpet lately, starting with our friend Daniel Craig, who wore a hot pink velvet blazer, classic tux cut, on the James Bond red carpet in London this week. And it was stunning. I'd also like to direct your attention to the Tony Awards red carpet from last weekend. We saw Jeremy Pope in the same shade of, I think it was like a satin. Jake Gyllenhaal in a light pink, all pink monochromatic look. So mostly I'm really excited about the path that those individuals, including James Bond himself, are paving on the red carpet these days.
What about like Jason Sudeikis? He was wearing like a velvety kind of thing.
Yep, notably not pink, but yes, a velvet, very nice velvet.
Oh, I thought you were going for a velvet thing.
Oh no, it was the color pink. Yeah, but I also like velvet suits, and he wore a very nice velvet blue. I believe it was a Tom Ford.
Well, great. You didn't answer anything about the actual James Bond question, but I do appreciate. Pink is good. Yeah, pink is good.
Is Judi Dench still around?
Yes. Yes. Oh, you mean the character in the movies?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Or as a person.
Her character in the movie. She was M, right? She was M? Or was she Q? I never know which one's Q and which one's M.
All right, I'm going to break it down to people at home. I think James Bond, the movies, are fine. I have no love for the 007 franchise except for GoldenEye as I was a kid. And even now I'm just like, oh, GoldenEye was a fine video game. And I liked Casino Royale, I think, but I don't really remember too much of it. And I did like Skyfall, but I think it's only because of Skyfall.
Can I just get on a soapbox for another moment? I think one thing that we've seen in the last few years, and maybe this isn't every movie, but in my mind it's every movie. I feel like every James Bond movie of like the past 5 years, however many that is, just whatever song is in it. They always have a big song, and that one just automatically wins the Oscar. And I just didn't think that Sam Smith's song was that great. I love a lot of their music, but that one didn't really hit for me. And it was a year where there were lots of other good songs. So I'm just a little bit concerned that Billie Eilish's song is just going to swoop in and automatically get the Oscar without giving consideration to any great new songs. Like maybe some of the ones from Dear Evan Hansen or In the Heights or the many other musicals that came out this year. So that's how I feel. That's my soapbox.
Okay. All right. You have a lot of feelings on the outskirts of James Bond, but not James Bond itself. Last question, actually, before I move on here, is that I watched Spectre and 007 Spectre, I think it was called, right?
The last one?
Yeah, I think it was. And all these movies are starting to blend together. Something about them, it's like Mission Impossible, where I feel like it's the same kind of thing, where it's like, okay, you got like top secret agent type of dude who is doing a crazy mission to save the world, and there's explosions and whatever. I guess you can say that about superhero movies too. But in these ones, it's like this just handsome white dude doing it. And then they try to connect it like they would like a Marvel universe in a way, where I might be speaking out of turn here, but I remember watching Spectre and they reveal a character and I'm like, am I supposed to know who that is? Because they sure are making a big deal out of this. And apparently I was. Like, if you really care about the franchise, you're like, oh my God, this character's back.
I think it's because a lot of them are remakes. I don't know if Spectre was or not, but I think like Bond fans get it. But how many Bond movies are there? Like 30? Like, they've been going for so many decades now. But there's one other topic that's related to James Bond, but not actually about this new movie, that I'd like to address, and that is Tuong. I want to ask you, who do you think the next Bond should be?
Great question. I don't care. I mean, Idris Elba was the like hot button person to be, and I'm totally for it. I do agree with Daniel Craig when he did that interview saying that, because some people are like, you think James Bond should be a woman or 007? And I'm like, they could, but Daniel Craig was like, or make like a really kick-ass woman character, because like for me, it's mostly that there's just, if you make James Bond a woman, and you know what, if they do it, power to them, but I'm more like, fuck, you have so many fucking like just idiots out there that is probably going to try to destroy whoever becomes 007 as a woman's career. And maybe that's not a great reason, but I just see that being like, it's such a weird toxic male fan base that I feel like, man, you could totally make a kick-ass woman character. I think of like Atomic Blonde, like Charlize Theron, like she is Furiosa, same Charlize Theron again, like that is like cool stuff. I don't know if they need to make 007 per se. Maybe a character in that universe, sure. How do you feel about that?
I'd be fine with having a female 007, because I think like I don't know, it's not like it's the same character the whole time, right? Like first of all, they're bringing in different actors, but like let's think about this logically. He's the same age all the time, give or take, a decade or so. So obviously he's not the same character the whole time, just growing old and that sort of thing. So why shouldn't they change his race or gender or whatever it may be? So I'm all for it. I agree that like, yeah, let's also get more great roles for women. But I think the main problem is every time they bring in female characters, she's either gone at the end of the movie because she's like a forgotten love interest, or they kill her off. So I think like a little bit more consistency would be nice.
Yeah, I agree. I just think, yeah, make a strong role for women, and if you can make 007 a awesome female, I'm for it. I'm afraid of what like male people would do, like the fan base, like the toxic fan base would do. But even if they did like 008, just made that a woman, sure. Like, I don't know.
But I also just want to go ahead and throw my weight behind Idris Elba. Idris, you have my vote.
He's too busy doing the Sonic movie, so it doesn't matter. Let's do one more news story here, and that is that Scarlett Johansson settled the Black Widow thing. Yeah. That lawsuit, that was a pretty big thing for a while. How do you feel about that?
I'm actually surprised that we didn't hear more stories about like this one. I guess I have no idea of how Hollywood contracts work, but I would imagine that a lot of the films that were made pre-COVID were like the part of their earnings came from box office returns. So when box offices closed, that's not fair to the actors or whoever, cast or crew or whatever, who, you know, were reliant on that. So I'm surprised that we didn't hear more about this in general, about like renegotiation of contracts. I've only heard her perspective, which sounds like her team reached out to Disney and wanted to renegotiate, and Disney was like, no. So then she sued them, which seems like a logical thing for me. But I am intrigued to know, like, okay, what about all the other actors whose earnings were supposed to be based on box office returns and then they were released on streaming? I want to know.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we've talked about this for a few weeks now, but yeah, it's an interesting thing, because when I think Scarlett was in the right for this kind of thing, because it's like, hey, they kind of screwed her last minute, it sounded like anyways, and they kind of changed details or left out key details of the contract for when they did go into the streaming stuff. So I probably was like a loophole that they hoped that she wouldn't notice. But I mean, of course you notice missing tens of millions of dollars. And it was interesting because you did get a lot of a handful of support from other actresses and stuff, not necessarily going through the same stuff, but just being like, hey, Scarlett, we agree with you, we support you, kind of thing. And I don't think Disney needs one of their key stars to really turn against them, because the statement when it first happened, they were kind of like really negative on Scarlett Johansson. They were like, you know, I don't think you're really understanding the impact of COVID with your actions trying to sue us. And that's not a great response at all. So now it feels very like, I don't know, corporate and professional, being like, oh, we've come to terms and I'm really looking forward to being in your movies and we're really looking forward for Scarlett to be in our movies, that kind of thing. So I'm glad it's over.
I'm just glad that next time I'm in a room with Scarlett and Walt, things don't have to be awkward, you know?
You mean Walt's brain in a jar?
Yeah, in a room with me and Scarlett Johansson.
Oh, I thought you said Walt. Yeah. Disney. Okay, you are saying that. Okay, yeah. Okay, all right. Well, he's dead, so...
Well, I also am rarely in a room with the two of them, so it was sort of a double joke, but neither joke landed. So,
hey, you know what? It didn't land for me, but I know our thousands of listeners, it definitely hit for them. Yep. Yeah. Laura, we're here for one reason and one reason only, is because there is a string of musical movies that are coming out or have come out, and you know, you are one of the biggest musical fans that I know. And I thought it was appropriate and convenient, since we live together, that you would be on pretty much all of these musical episodes. Okay. Last year, you were on a Christmas episode, and you made me watch Princess Switch 2, and I was regretting that. It was okay. I still don't understand it because I didn't watch the first one.
Well, why don't we do the first one this year, then?
No. Let's just do this musical thing. I think it's much more entertaining. But today we are talking about something that is a very interesting movie, or at least we have a history with this.
It took a turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should I say what we're going to talk about?
Go ahead.
Dear Evan Hansen.
Dear Evan Hansen, today is going to be an amazing day, and here's why.
What to say to you? Yeah, so we're going to talk about the movie Dear Evan Hansen. But as a bit of background, Dear Evan Hansen, first of all, his name isn't Dear. I should clarify, it is Evan Hansen. The Dear is because he's writing himself a letter. And it was a stage musical that came out the year after Hamilton, so 2016. Big hit. I think it was quite popular because it dove into some difficult subject matter, specifically addressing the mental health of teenagers, or at least one teenager, although they expanded that a little bit in the movie. Huge hit. Tickets, sold out. Huge lineups. Remember when we were in New York and we went to see it, like, well, maybe we could just queue up for tickets, and then we asked the first person in line, and they were like, no, we've been here since 7 p.m. last night. So,
yeah, well, we should talk about, you're doing a great job so far, but we also have like a huge you and I have a history with this soundtrack and stuff too, and that's what hits harder with, I think, this movie.
Yeah, I think so. Tuong and I were pretty obsessed with Hamilton when we first started dating, and then eventually we were like, we should probably listen to other things too. So then Dear Evan Hansen was the big show that year, won the Tony, won Ben Platt his best actor in a musical Tony. And so we got pretty hooked on that soundtrack too. And there's some really, really nice ones in there. Some real sad stuff, but like we like Waving Through a Window for Forever. Those are two of my favorites, but Tuong really likes. We also both really like You Will Be Found. I think that's your favorite one. And when Tuong proposed to me, there's a little note inside the box that said, "You have been found," when he opened it, and there was a ring. So that was pretty cute.
Okay, you weren't supposed to reveal that. Actually, just kidding. No. I'm kidding. I want everyone to know that I'm very romantic. And I changed the wording to "you have been found," like what Laura just said. But I want to emphasize that because, like, come on. That's a slam dunk move there. Can I get a hell yeah?
Slam dunk musical proposal. Top 10 slam dunk musical proposals.
Okay, she says musical proposals, but at no point did I break out into song or do any of that kind of stuff.
Then I referenced Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, what else about this musical can we talk about before we get into the movie version of it? Like, obviously, I want to talk about your love for Ben Platt as well and how he's kind of been on the up and up until now.
Poor Ben Platt. Okay, so here's one piece that you should know is that at least my perception of this musical, and I like follow a lot of, I don't know, people online who are into musical theater and all that kind of stuff, is that it was pretty universally loved. Like, there was not a backlash to the subject matter of this musical when it first came out, at least from where I sat. I think part of that is like, I don't know, in general, people like musical theater lovers tend to like celebrate stuff all the time. So I think there's like maybe less of a tendency within Broadway fandom to like nitpick about things, but that also might be a tide that's turning. I could be completely wrong about that, just my perception. So yeah, it was like super, super popular. Soundtrack was great. The music is by Pasek and Paul, who you may know from they won an Oscar for City of Stars for doing the music in La La Land. And then they won the Tony for Dear Evan Hansen, and then that same year they were nominated for what's Keala Settle's song, This Is Me, in The Greatest Showman. So they had like 3 huge hits in a row. So coming off a pretty hot streak, and I think
they also did that Aladdin song.
Oh, yeah, the new Aladdin song, Speechless, that Jasmine. I like that song, although I only saw that movie once and I haven't heard the song since, but I remember enjoying it. So yeah, I think a pretty talented duo. Where was I going with this? So good music, very popular show. And then, here's the other piece that you might know is that Ben Platt's dad, I think his name is Mark Platt, is a big time Hollywood producer. So I think he's producing the new Wicked movie. He produced this movie, Dear Evan Hansen, and he produced, what was that other one I just mentioned?
You said Wicked.
No, but the one that The Greatest Showman. So I think he has a close relationship with Pasek and Paul, and of course Ben is his son. And Ben has had like a lot of success, or at least like been in a lot of places. So he released a pop album. I think he was signed with Sony, that I loved. I loved his first album. It's called Sing to Me Instead. Highly recommend checking that one out. Another favorite of Tuong's and mine when we're cooking and hanging out and that sort of thing.
So many of our personal details being released on this episode. I did ask for this, and that's fine. Keep doing it. The people need to know what our relationship is like. But also, Laura literally listened to that this morning, so she does really like this album.
It's a great album. He also landed a TV series with Netflix called The Politician, which I don't know anyone who watched that other than me. But it got picked up for a second season. I don't know if it's got a third one as well.
It also like got nominated for stuff.
It got a lot of awards recognition. So actually we'll talk about the movie in a little bit, but I am anticipating like some Golden Globe nominations for Dear Evan Hansen just because of the way Hollywood works. He got a Netflix special of his concert. So like, who do you know who has Netflix specials of like concert recordings? Taylor Swift. That's mostly all I know. Like, that's not a very common thing, I think, especially for like a new performer.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's becoming more common between like other services as well. Like, I think Billie Eilish, I mean, she's bigger, obviously, but she has like something on Prime or something, or was it on Disney? I can't remember. I can't think of anyone else. I mean, Bo Burnham has his stuff, but does that even count? Like, it's different.
Yeah, he's like, think of how many stand-up specials he had before he got on Netflix. Like, he was probably making them before Netflix had stand-up specials. But anyways, he's been like pretty high profile. I think it's hard to disattach that from his connections to the industry. So not to say that he isn't like incredibly talented and doesn't deserve any of the recognition that he's got, but I think like if you look at some of his peers like Anthony Ramos, who is similarly a Broadway star who released his first album around the same time, and has been working hard in like television roles and that sort of thing. He's not getting the same level of attention that I think, or maybe level of opportunities, although he's starting to get more attention now, which I'm very excited about, as someone like Ben Platt. Ben also just released his second album, which is good, not as good as the first. But anyways, I say that not to shit on Ben Platt, but to say like, I think this movie was made for the very specific purpose of his performance was like this beloved piece of theater, and people were like, okay, we need to capture this so that we can watch it for generations to come or whatever. And then he sort of had within his family the ability to say like, yeah, okay, let's do that. So the film went into production always planning to have Ben Platt in the lead role. It wasn't like a let's make an Evan Hansen movie, from what I understand. It was like, let's capture Ben Platt's performance in Dear Evan Hansen and maybe we can make like a hit film out of it. And then so that's what they tried to do. Yeah,
that's a good setup. All right, I guess we should talk about the movie in just a second, but I think all of this will start coming around too. I think, well, first of all, let's talk about, while we're on the topic of Ben Platt, I think it makes sense because the first thing that came out from this, there's two things. One is the subject matter, which we will talk about, and the other thing is the Ben Platt's age and how this kid is supposed to be in high school and all this other stuff. And I want to address this now. How do you feel about, like, in the trailers and stuff, people are like, oh my God, it looks like a 40-year-old man playing a high school kid or whatever it is. How do you feel about that reaction, and how did you feel about that watching the movie?
Yeah, I think it's like a fairly valid reaction that like, yeah, he doesn't look like a high school student, but I also feel like if there wasn't so much discussion around it, it wouldn't have bothered me. And I don't know if they did CGI stuff or not, but there was something weird about his upper lip for like half of the movie where I'm like, did they like make it fuzzy to hide his stubble or something like that? I just feel like if they had just played it straight, not messed around with computers, it probably would have been a little bit easier to handle. But I also like, I don't know, when I watch Grease, I don't think about the fact, I feel like when I watch musicals, I'm far enough removed from reality that I don't really think about ages and that sort of thing too much. So, but having it in my mind as I was watching it did detract a little bit. But it was more so, the thing that was most distracting for me was his hair.
Yeah, let's talk about it, because you know what? The thing is that Laura liked his original haircut in the Broadway, which is like a really short haircut, and this is apparently his real hair. So how do you feel about that now?
Well, it's beautiful. I wish that my hair looked like, had those nice curls and that sort of thing. When you're like a teenager who doesn't want to be noticed, I feel like you just get the same haircut as everybody else. But instead he had like this glorious mane of locks that it just felt really weird to me. I don't know what it was. A lot of people saw the trailer, and admittedly I did too. And I was like, what is with this wig? But like, good on you, Ben, for being able to grow that hair. And I don't know, I feel like I'm being mean to Ben. Like, I do think he's an immensely talented person and has beautiful hair and like all these other things, and I only wish the best for him. But I just wanted to provide some of this background as we go through.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And we will talk about his performance and his singing and all that other stuff in the context of this movie. I think the second thing is just setting it up is, I don't think this is too much of a spoiler because this is kind of the premise of the movie, and we will get into spoilers. So if you care, then definitely watch the movie first, or you know what, maybe see if you can find a stream of the Broadway show or listen to the musical. But the premise is that we have like, let's see, he's like an anxious kid, an isolated kid who has, let's say, mental, he's dealing with like mental issues and yeah, a lot of things, and he's taking medication for it, all this stuff, but he's suffering from not fitting in, and that's kind of like Evan's kind of POV point of view. And then you have this other character, Connor, who is also on the other side of it, also alone and dealing with his own kind of issues as well. And what happens very early, this is the start of the movie pretty much, is very early on they have a small interaction, and then you notice, or you end up finding out, that Connor kills himself. He completes suicide. And what happens is that there's this whole movie is like a huge misunderstanding and a lot of bad choices made by Evan. And what happens is that now people think that Evan was close to Connor, and they start spinning this tale of like, oh, maybe Connor wasn't such a bad person. I forgot to mention that Connor was kind of like a huge ass to everybody, kind of a dick. But, you know, he's going through his own stuff, but he was not a nice person. But because of his death and because of his connection to Evan and because of all the lies Evan ends up telling, not on purpose, but he just kind of falls into it and lets it happen. It just turns, one big lie turns into this huge thing. Now Evan's being celebrated as like a hero, and Connor is also not the person we thought he was, and a lot of good comes out of it, but it's also like a huge like, oh man, you are making like a meal out of someone's suicide. And that's, you know, you were talking about this earlier about how that wasn't really a problem on the Broadway stage because of the, I feel like they handled it elegantly, as elegant as they could. And in the movie still, I feel like they did a good job with saying that that's a wrong thing to do, but this is what the story is. And before because I know you have a lot to say, I'd like to say that like some people are like up in arms about like, oh, I don't want to watch this movie because that's a horrible thing. It is a horrible thing. They talk about that. But like, I think if you have good writers or have a good understanding of story, then you can make a movie about pretty much anything. And I'll point you towards World's Greatest Dad, which is Robin Williams' movie about, it's like a dark comedy. It's about the same thing where his son kills himself. He's a teacher, and then his son is like a huge asshole, and I think his son kills himself masturbating or something like that. It's crazy. Yeah, like he has a belt around his neck and stuff like that, and he ends up hanging himself by accident. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Robin Williams' character ends up being a hero, and he's celebrated for his son's death. It's almost the exact same thing, and that movie was celebrated and not like shamed on, I guess. Maybe it was by some people, but I think combined with like Evan Hansen's or Ben Platt's like weird age look, I think, and the subject matter to the mainstream audience, it was very jarring for people, and people didn't want to watch it. Yeah.
And so one thing I'll add, like when it comes to Evan's background, like he really is an outsider. Like, so they, at one point, they actually have a scene where he and another character are talking about medications that they're taking for depression and anxiety, and there's like multiple references to him going to therapy. But I think it's in the opening scene or one of the early scenes in the movie where we find out that like when his mom isn't home, which she rarely is at night because she's a nurse and she's a single parent, she's constantly working overtime, he actually doesn't eat because he's too anxious to have someone bring food to the door or to like go get food on his own. So I think like this is really a crippling thing for him. Like if you've ever been someone who has walked into a cafeteria and not had anyone to sit with, like it's pretty devastating to watch what this kid's going through. And I think I had a lot of sympathy for him, like both in the stage show and the movie. But I think two of the key pieces that have changed since the show opened, or between the show opening and this movie actually coming out in theaters, that was probably sort of in the midst of happening while they were making the movie was, I mean, one, there's the age thing. So I think this movie got delayed because of COVID, but to the point where they're like, you know, we can probably still use Ben. But the idea of like an adult person playing this teenager who's such an outsider, I think is less believable. But then there's also the element of all of the racial discourse that we saw last summer with, you know, Black Lives Matter and our conversations about, you know, what has happened in Canada with regards to our history of genocide of Indigenous peoples, among, you know, many other racial issues that have come to the fore over the last year. And so to go from a story that really centers a white man as an outsider in 2016 versus 2021, I think a lot of people feel like that's a lot less, or maybe are like less open to that or find it less believable or whatever it may be, after they've had people of color playing this role on Broadway. So I think that like adds another element to it. That it's sort of like, okay, if you really want to make a movie about feeling like an outsider, something that you could do to like bring progress to the industry is by centering a person of color as the main character, and they chose not to do that. So I think that's a little bit of a strike against the movie. But again, it sort of goes back to the fact that this movie was made basically for Ben Platt. So I can see like why some people don't love it for that reason. And I also think that like that could have been a good opportunity because there's so many talented people, young people who have played Evan Hansen on Broadway, and like I think there will be many more to come who might have brought that like extra element to the role that might have made it a little bit more accepted.
Sure, it's like if they made a Hamilton movie and they're like, you know who would be good as Hamilton? Lin-Manuel. It's like, well, you know, we know he's good, but let's like get someone else to do it. The thing is like with Ben Platt's performance, and we'll go back to this for a second, is I actually did think it was really good. I thought his performance was really good, if not like sometimes a little bit too much dramatic, which that's, you know, he's a theater actor as well, so you can kind of see that. Oh man, the meme of him, like him crying in the woods towards the end, it's like, it's a lot. It's a lot.
I think his performance was too big for a screen. It was like, we've never seen him on stage. We'd love to have seen him on stage as Evan Hansen. I almost called him as Dear Evan Hansen. But I think, I think it was too big for the screen. I'll just reiterate what everyone's been saying on Twitter for the last few weeks, which is people don't want movie musicals. People want pro shots of stage musicals, but sometimes we want movie musicals too. I can't wait for the Wicked musical, but I feel like this is a good example of a show that like, yeah, absolutely captured the stage performance, but maybe it just shouldn't have been made into a movie.
Yeah, the thing is like, if they really wanted to do this right, and I know I'm jumping over the place, like for me it's like, hey, get Ben Platt to play Evan again, but just do it on stage, like you said, and shoot it like they did like that one shot of Hamilton, or how they're doing it for like they did for Come From Away and stuff like that. Like if you can capture those on stage moments, I think some of the scenes would have worked better, because like some things that people say feel very theatrical, which you let it get away with on stage, but not so much like in a movie. Like I would say like Amy Adams' character, like she's very open about her feelings and stuff. And like some of the things that she says is like, I feel like not very believable to see in a movie, but like on stage, I wouldn't even bat an eye. I'm like, yeah, sure, she can say that.
Yeah, and I also think like another maybe missed opportunity is like, okay, if this is if we're making this movie because Ben Platt, Broadway actor, such a huge star that we want to capture his performance, why not include some of the other amazing performances from the stage show, like Rachel Bay Jones, who played his mother. She won the Tony for best I think featured actress in a musical is what it's called. And also like an outstanding performance, but they were like, no, we're going to bring in Julianne Moore, who, you know, is nice in the role, but isn't the best singer I've ever heard. On the other hand, Rachel Bay Jones, amazing voice, amazing actress. And that could have been like, I don't know, another opportunity for a stage actor to be in a movie, which those aren't super common. So it just kind of feels like really servicing one goal of like, let's make Ben Platt a movie star.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I do think his performance, honestly, was pretty decent for like large chunks of it. But you're right that it was like definitely over the top in some and too big in some senses. But I did think when he was doing his nervous tics that character does, like I thought that was pretty good. The thing that I did not like was like, and you're probably right with the whole like I would never have noticed if people didn't make a big deal out of it, because I think adults play high schoolers all the fucking time. I don't think Ben Platt looks ridiculous as a high schooler when he's put in the setting in motion, but there are some shots that are weird. Like I feel like some shots you're like, okay, I believe he's in high school, and then some shots you're like, wait a second, what is happening? And I felt that a lot when he was like running in the woods and he's like running towards the camera. I'm like, oh my God, you look way, way older here than you did like walking in the high school. So it's very inconsistent.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like the ones where I feel like it was more so in the close-ups. There was something with his upper lip where like, you know how you have those two lines that are like coming straight down out of your nose? It's like they just erased them. I'm like, where did they go? But maybe for the shots where he's running, like because of the motion, they weren't able to have the same effect or something. I don't know. We might look this up later and find out that there was no CGI involved whatsoever. But there's something about his lip that just gets kind of weird.
Oh, then that's the makeup department's fault then, because like, you know, I think they did a decent job making him look young in a lot of parts, but like, yeah, there's just some parts that he didn't. And anyways, let's talk about some of this other stuff, like Caitlin Dever being in the movie, and there's like a decent supporting cast, and there's a new song in this movie too that I want to talk about. There's 2 new songs. There's 2? Yeah. I thought there was only 1. You can talk about it. And let's go with Caitlin Dever. I think she's like pretty up and coming, it seems like, ever since what's that movie called? Booksmart. Booksmart. And then she did like an HBO show, not HBO. She got like nominated for some limited series award. I don't know. I didn't watch it. But she seems like she was pretty good. I thought she was decent.
Yeah, I thought I thought she was good. I found there's not a lot of meat to that role. Like it's an interesting perspective because it's like the sister of Connor, who we find out Evan is like secretly has been in love with, well, like high school crush love, right? And she and Connor didn't get along. So when one of the songs is called Requiem, and her line is after Connor dies, she says, "I will sing no requiem tonight." So basically she's like, I'm not going to mourn, like put on this performance of mourning a brother who I never really loved. But then of course there's this story Evan tells about like, well, your brother really loved you and he thought you were the coolest and all these kinds of things, which of course is really just how Evan feels about Zoe, not Connor. Yeah.
So like there are some songs with Evan that I found creepier in the movie than I did just listening to the music. Cause like I remain that the soundtrack is awesome. I really do think it's like really catchy and poppy and like, I don't know. It's like an earworm for me. And there are songs that what's it called, For Forever? No, is that like, yeah, Only Us is one where like he's that one. Yeah. I can't remember the name. Anyways, there's that. the Only Us song and the song that he's singing about, like, hey, your brother really loved you. That is really, if I could tell her. And if you listen to that on the soundtrack, it's beautiful. Beautiful stuff. Really cute. Really good. But in the context of the movie, and when you're watching, you're like, oh, he's, Evan makes, we talked about this before, Evan makes the wrong choices all the time. And I don't blame him because we've already talked about he's going through his own mental problems, and he's an anxious guy. He's an isolated kid. There's you can feel some sort of form of sympathy from him because he's not doing well and he's trying to, and he's finally starting to get the things he wants by being kind of someone else and letting lies slip. But in those songs, it's like, ooh, you're being kind of manipulative right now, and it's like she's really starting to fall for you, and you are just letting it happen, and it's obviously the wrong thing, but it's also like, oh, I don't know if these songs hit the same way now. Yep.
No, I think you're totally right. And especially when you're like, okay, you're also singing about like a brother's feelings for his sister, but we know that these are rooted in romantic feelings, and that makes it like double yuck.
Yeah, I still think the songs are good if taken out of those contexts, but it's just like, God damn it. What else were we talking about? Let's talk about the new songs in the movie.
Yeah, so there's 2 new songs. One of them is called The Anonymous One. So I talked earlier about Evan having a conversation with another character where they're talking about medication. And this is sort of revealing that this character, I can't remember her name. Damn it. Alana. Yes, thank you. So she's played by Amanda Stenberg, and I actually really, really liked her performance, and I thought they beefed up this role a little bit for the movie versus the stage show. So she's sort of like class president, runs all these fundraisers. She starts this organization that fundraises for a memorial in Connor's memory. So they basically want to like reopen this old apple orchard because it was somewhere that Connor liked going as a kid. So that's one of like the main plot points driving the story, I would say. But one of the interesting scenes here is Connor kind of meets up with her one night, and Evan meets up with Alana one night, and they go for a walk, and she makes a reference to like people like us, and he's like, what do you mean people like that us? And that's where she tells him that I'm not sure if she experiences depression or anxiety or whatever it may be, but they're like comparing medications, and then he's sort of like, but you're popular, you do all these things, how can you be depressed, and those sort of common stereotypes about people with mental health who experience bad mental health. And then she sings this beautiful new song called The Anonymous Ones that she co-wrote, I think, with I'm not sure if it was with Pasek and Paul as well, but I thought it was a really good addition to the story and gave some depth to her character, but also maybe gave Evan a moment of like identifying with someone else, like the real version of him identifying with someone else, as opposed to like this sort of person he's pretending to be.
I like the song too, except I do think it was a bit much when they sang it a second time.
Yeah, she got a reprise later on. Yeah. No, I thought it was, I liked it. I liked her performance of it. And there's a cover of it by, I don't know how to say this artist's name, SZA, SZA. She does a cover of it.
I don't know. Let's just say SZA. What's the other song? Did I miss that?
The last song. So they changed the ending a little bit. At the end of the original stage production, I think they end on a reprise of For Forever. But for this one, they wrote a new song. So the thing is, like, eventually the story gets out that, like, all of this stuff about Connor is made up. He was never friends with Evan. He was never, like, secretly a huge fan of his sister, and, like, talked about how much he loved his parents but struggled to communicate with them. These are all things that Evan said about Connor, but were just made up. However, what does happen at the end is Evan, like, wants to fix things. So he reaches out to people he knows who might have known Connor at some point. And eventually he gets in touch with someone who was at rehab with Connor, who actually has a video of Connor performing a song that he wrote. So earlier in the film, his mom, played by Amy Adams, is asking Evan, like, we got him this guitar. Do you know if he ever played it? He talked about writing songs, but we don't know if it's true. And Evan, of course, is like, well, actually, it's surprising that he didn't make up a lie there. But he's like, no, unfortunately, I don't know anything about that. But he gets a video of Connor performing this song. Let me see if I've got the name of it here. No, I don't.
Well, while you're talking about that, they also cut 2 songs from the musical as well. 3 songs from the musical, which, I like those songs. So I kind of miss them, except for the one with the glove. I don't really care for that one. But, it's better to see on... We did see Dear Evan Hansen. We saw in Toronto, yeah. I thought it was great when we saw in Toronto.
Mm-hmm. And we saw not the understudy, but like the second Evan Hansen. There was the main one who did 4 shows, and then there was the one who did 3 shows a week or something like that. But anyways, the other song was called A Little Closer, and so that's what Connor's character performs at the end, rather than Evan singing For Forever. But it's actually really nice because it gives the family a little bit of closure, as opposed to in the stage production where they're like, oh no, yeah, like there's nothing good of our son that remains with us. They get this video of him at the end. So obviously it doesn't like make any of what Evan did okay, but I think it gives them a little bit of like, okay, we can rest now knowing that our son did have like this little bit of joy that he had in songwriting. And that's a really nice song. Yeah. But yeah, the ones that were cut were Anybody Need a Map, which is the opening song in the show. And I was fine with them cutting that, to be honest. I think like starting with Waving Through a Window, that's probably my favorite song on the soundtrack. So it was pretty good. And then the glove song, that one, I feel like there's a key relationship piece that's missing there. That's where like Connor's dad in the stage production, stepdad in the movie, is talking about how like Connor never wanted to play baseball with him and he wished he had a son like Evan. And of course, Evan's dad left him when he was a kid. So Evan is like so thirsty for this father figure in his life.
But they do that scene just without the song.
Yeah, but like if we didn't have that song, none of us would know how to break in a glove. So, and the song that I think people are upset that got cut is Not So Big, So Small. What's the other one? Oh, Good For You, which is the one that Rachel Bay Jones did so beautifully. I think both of the moms sing that one in the stage production where they find out what Evan did and they're pissed. They're pissed off at him. And it's like a really big angry song that was missing from this. But Julianne Moore, sorry Julianne, love you as an actress, but you probably couldn't have done that one justice, I'll be honest.
Yeah, probably not. What else? So what else did they change about the Broadway version versus the Hollywood movie? Like you already talked about, the endings changed a bit, where Connor has... like that character seems to have a small, not redemption, but like you can see that he was not all bad, which I do think, yeah, and I think that's a good change at the end too. But did they change anything else with the movie?
Yeah, well, like in the movie, you basically are inches from Ben Platt's face the whole time. So when he's not crying, you really get the full experience. However, in person, you always had the risk of like it actually getting on you in the audience. So I feel like that's a little bit of a missed experience. Yeah,
we should have got the 4D tickets where they missed you, where the employees of the audience do that. I don't think they can do that anymore, though. They just lightly spray you. Yeah, and any final thought? Like, for me, like, I think... I'll just go back to this and reiterate. I do think the messages in this movie are good. Like, I think they handle the heavy subject matter as well as, like, other movies could. Like, I don't know if there's any movie that does it perfectly, I'll be honest with you. But I didn't think... I mean, there's definitely some heavy-handed moments. Of course, it's a musical, and it's kind of positioned that way. But, you know, with the song You Will Be Found and the Anonymous Ones, I'll go back to You Will Be Found. I think that song just freaking slaps. Like, I think the song is really good. I think the message is really good. You're gonna wake up, Captain Meatball. And I think he did not wake up. He's still sleeping, by the way. Just an update for you guys. And yeah, the way they handle that song and some these songs, like, I think are really good in the context of mental health. And, you know, also like suicide too, right? Like, Evan is suicidal, and you find that out at the very end that they talk a lot about this tree and whatever, and that he jumped himself and he almost killed himself. He ended up breaking his arm instead, but it's kind of emotional. I will say, like, the things that I did not enjoy about the movie is like, the color palette I think was very like blue and like just like depressing. It just looked depressing all the time, which I guess is a reflection of what the movie is in a lot of ways. I also felt like they used a lot of the same looking shots where anytime we're in the school, they were walking by the same set of lockers all the time. All of them were, I'm not sure if you noticed this, but like all of them were like, let's just turn this, that one T intersection and one straight away in the hallways. And all of the characters did that. I'm like, did you guys not like section off the entire school to do this whole, like, a lot of the stuff that happens in this movie happens at a school. Why are we seeing the same shots here? And a lot of like running in the woods, and I'm like, this is kind of much. And one more thing that I'll say is I really liked how they handled Sincerely Me, which I think is the most fun song of the soundtrack in general. But I think the thing that misses for me is when I think of musicals, I think of like fun, I guess. Like, and I know Dear Evan Hansen, we already said that it talks a lot about like some pretty heavy shit, but I think on stage it was also really fun, and there's a lot of dancing, and there's a lot of like all this other stuff happening. And in the movie they only break out into the fun part of a musical like once, and in that Sincerely Me stuff, but no one's like singing and dancing. There's a lot of just singing at each other in a room, and something about that is just like, well, fuck, I'd rather just watch the other one, because there's like, it's more of a spectacle, and that spectacle helps me absorb the heavy shit that's happening in this movie, you know?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up Sincerely Me, because I forgot to mention, I thought that was one song on the soundtrack that I never really liked, but then when we saw the show on stage, I was like, oh, that's really fun. And I really liked it in this. I actually thought that the movie version of it was even better than the stage version of this one number, just because it's easier. Like, this one character, Connor, he's dead at this point, so he's passed, but he's in this number, so that's a little bit confusing. But I thought the way that the movie handled it, like, just made it work better. And I thought that actor's performance was really, really good in that number too. It was Colton Ryan. And so he sang that song at the end as well. The one that I've already forgot the name of. But big fan of that. In general, like, the performances in this movie were quite fun, and it was kind of nice that they brought in some unfamiliar faces in the. Well, I guess it was mostly Colton Ryan, and is it Nick Dodani who played his friend Jared?
Yeah, that character in the stage musical, I remember having like a more of a turn arc in the musical, where it's like, oh, if you don't say this, then I'm going to tell everyone that you lied to everyone, because that character, the best friend Jared, he helps fabricate the lie of Evan and things like that. But
let me just mention, not even best friend. This is like a family friend who's like, I guess we're friends, and from Evan's perspective, that's his best friend. Just like, this is such a sad movie, beginning to end. It's a real bummer. So I'm glad we saw it, but I don't want to watch it again. I'll listen to the soundtrack again, but I also think, like, don't not see it just because you heard bad things about it. Because I don't know, support musicals even if they're not the best.
Yeah, I don't think it's like a massive failure like people are trying to put it out to be. I think some people are saying it's like super terrible and like just super bad and like offensively bad and things like that. I think that's a little step too far. I think this, on the backs of a really good soundtrack, they'd have to really fuck it up to mess it up. Could they have handled things differently and better? Absolutely, but you know, I think all things considering, I didn't hate it. I didn't fall in love with it. I agree with you that I wouldn't watch it again. I'd much rather just listen to the soundtrack again or watch a stage musical version again. I think I'll go back to that. Like, I just think it's just more fun and more easy to digest all the stuff that's happening in it. So, yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. And any final thoughts on Dear Evan Hansen at all?
Just like I said, support musicals, and then maybe we'll get more of them, and then maybe they'll be better and better, but also maybe we'll get pro shots instead of just movie musicals.
Yeah.
Demand more.
Demand more, everyone. And I think this movie, at its best, I hope it does help stir some conversation on mental health. Because that's what the core message of the movie is to start a conversation about this whole thing about you will be found and all this stuff of the anonymous ones. We're all dealing with some stuff and we should reach out for help if we need it, or get the medication we need if we need it as well, or talk to the right people if you're feeling alone. And I think all of those things are true, and I think that's a great thing to talk about just in general. And hopefully people take away the right things from this movie and not the part where they're like, I don't want to watch it because he's just this giant lie and it's a really big asshole lie. And I'm like, well, yes, but there's more to it. Context, everyone. Context. All right. And I think that's it for Dear Evan Hansen. Man, I feel like this movie just came and went, eh?
Yep. And Captain Meatball is giving us the sign to wrap up. So Here we are.
And here we are wrapping up by talking about it again. No, I'm done. Laura, before we leave, where are we going to go? We're going to go downstairs to hang out with my parents. Do you have anything to plug for the people at home?
Oh, I wasn't ready for this. Everybody's talking about Jamie is another musical. I think it's on Amazon Prime that I've been meaning to check out. So again, if you want to support musicals, maybe give that one a look. It's got great reviews. And also some other cool stuff coming out in the musical realm soon. I think sometime in November we got Tick Tick Boom, Lin-Manuel Miranda's directorial debut, starring Andrew Garfield, which is like an autobiographical musical by Jonathan. I think his name is Jonathan Larson, who's also the creator of Rent, but this was his first musical. And then West Side Story, directed by Steven Spielberg. December 22nd, somewhere around there. Can't wait for that. And if you're looking for more podcast action where we talk about things that are sometimes musicals, you should look up Disney Dummies, where Tung and our friend Sam Leggett and I go through the Disney animated feature films in chronological order, and we just rip them to shreds. Just kidding. Sometimes we do, but mostly we celebrate them while also learning.
I love it. Captain Meatball, do you have anything to say for the people at home? Okay, he's trying to bite the microphone. That's it for me. You can find the rest of the shows in the PodCavern at www.podcavern.com. And Laura, do you want to end with your world famous catchphrase? Here we go.
Do, 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 do. Oh, it's not that one, is it? Ay caramba.
Okay, ay caramba, everyone. Bye.